Hello to our Veda Warrior community. My name is Smrita Chaube. I'm the founder of Veda Warrior. I'm excited to have you here today for another one of our masterclass series in which we are sitting down with Vasavi Kumar to learn about powerful mindset tools. So currently, America is unfortunately going through a mental health epidemic. So even before the pandemic, over 60% of Americans reported feeling chronically stressed, meaning that they felt stressed most of the time. And of course, since the pandemic, this has only gotten worse. At Veda Warrior, we really believe that the most effective long-term approach to fixing this problem is to use the ancient holistic medical science of Ayurveda and its non-toxic holistic therapies. So one way Ayurveda really differs from Western medicine is that it believes that all of our health starts with the mind. So the power of the mind is something Ayurveda knows really well and really stresses the importance of. So underlying all of our actual health issues are emotions. So at a time like this, when all of us are feeling pretty stressed, mindset is really one of the most powerful things we can use as a tool in order to optimize our mental health, feel less stressed during the day, and really live more joyful and purposeful lives. So to help us better understand the power of a strong mindset, joining us today is Vasavi Kumar. Vasavi is a licensed therapist and mindset coach with 2 master's degrees, and she is also the host of the amazing Being Human podcast, which teaches us how to stop living according to other people's expectations so that we can live life on our own terms and be as happy and healthy as humanly possible. So Vasavi, thanks so much for being here today with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Smrita. It's an honor to be here and to share, everything that I know in the amount of time that we have together. So I'm happy to be here.
Amazing. Well, let's kick off the conversation then. So one of the things all of us seem to be grappling with right now is that, very often some of the moments of greatest growth come as a result of challenges we face or rock bottom moments, so to speak. Many of us feel like 2020 was one of those years for us. You yourself have faced a lot of challenges in your life, including mental health issues, addiction, rehab, divorce, and then rebuilding. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey. What are some of the challenges you faced that led you to your awakening moment?
Yeah, I love that you said challenges because it wasn't just one turning point, right? Like a lot of times people think you have to have this one aha moment, which just wakes you up. And it's like, oh, everything is going to change. For me, it was a series of things starting from a very young age, being Indian, being a first generation Indian immigrant. I'm sure you can maybe relate to this. I grew up in an all white town. So from a very young age, I felt like I never belonged anywhere, even as a kid. And even when I was at my parents' house, I always felt too Americanized for them, right? So it's always like I'm too Indian for the kids at school. I'm too Americanized for my parents. And so, from a very young age, when you don't have a sense of belonging, trust and believe, you will go looking for people, places, and things to give you that sense of belonging. Unfortunately, but I don't even want to say unfortunately because I am who I am as a result of everything that I've gone through. I took the path of drugs. I took the path of relationship to relationship, like hopping from relationship to really kind of find who I was. But mostly it was this sense of not ever feeling comfortable in my skin was so uncomfortable for me that I had to use relationships to feel better and kind of avoid myself. I used drugs to have to numb the pain of not knowing who I was, right? Always feeling chronically dissatisfied with who I was. When I was 20 and I'm now 38 years old, I was diagnosed with a mental illness. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I'm now completely medication free. As we're recording this, it's a little over a year since I've been medication free. And I remember when I was diagnosed when I was 20, my psychiatrist said to me, you're going to have to be on medication for the rest of your life. Now, I want to first and foremost say, please, after listening to this interview, do not get off your medication. Do not do all that. If you are on medication, there's no shame in any of that. My point in sharing this is when I got diagnosed when I was 20 years old, I made it my mission to truly understand my mind. Because I said to myself, if I'm being diagnosed with a mental illness, and I'm saying that in air quotes because I think we don't have to always accept the labels that are given to us. When I was told that I had a mental illness, I made it my mission to understand my mind more than anyone, because I said, you cannot tell me who I am, right? That's what I was thinking with my doctor and even my parents who were so upset by all of this. So I made it my mission to really understand how I think, how I process, what are my triggers? I didn't even know what I was doing at the time. I hadn't yet gone to school to get my master's in social work or special ed or any of that stuff. But I was given this label and I said, okay, well, I should probably start to learn how to heal my mind if I'm being told that I have an illness of the mind. And so this is what, like 18 years in the making, really truly understanding my mind. I know myself better than anybody else. And then also I should just say, I was in therapy when I was 12 years old, right? So even before my diagnosis, I was always just searching for oneness within myself, which is ironically enough, right? I was given a diagnosis that was bipolar, two poles, and all I ever wanted was to feel at one with myself. So, those are really a lot of the challenges that I faced. And then getting divorced, right? Making decisions in my life simply because I thought I had to, and it was part of the status quo. Like, oh, you're 28, you should get married now. Oh, okay, well, you should have kids now. I never ended up having children. That was a choice that I was really firm with. I said, I'm not ready to do this. I don't want to have kids. I was very intentional about not wanting to have children. But, no one sets you up for what happens after you get divorced and being alone. And that really, for me, was, if I had to say there was a turning point, it was after I got divorced. I had felt like a complete failure, right? Because for me, making relationships work was something that I'd wanted to do since I was a child, always trying to mediate my parents from a young age and their arguments. But after I got divorced, that was really when I was left with my own aloneness. And so, without going too much into detail, that's really when I got into some unhealthy relationships with a man, and in a way almost lost my own sense of self. Didn't even have my sense of self, lost my sense of self, and really kind of went down this downward spiral of drugs and alcohol. And eventually in 2017 got sober, went to rehab, not once but twice. And so now, by the grace of God, I'm almost 2 years sober in March coming up of 2021.
Well, congratulations. What an achievement that is. And thank you so much for sharing that story. I mean, there are so many things that resonate with me here. And one of the underlying things I heard is that it kept bringing you back to this desire to know yourself, know how your mind works. So your curiosity to know yourself, and there's that phrase that we're always told, know thyself. It's that curiosity that was you were kind of guided by your intuition to keep holding that. And ultimately that led you out of this dark phase of your life. And I truly resonate with what you said about, being labeled by the system as bipolar. And I think, first of all, I totally echo your sentiment in saying there's no shame in anything anybody's doing. We're all here struggling on planet Earth, trying to do the best we can. But this story of being labeled as, oh, you have anxiety or you are depressed. I think very often the mainstream healthcare system guides us to just, write ourselves off as, oh, I'm depressed or I have anxiety. And then this is something I must suffer through forever. One way that Eastern medicine is really different is about saying, okay, yes, you're definitely experiencing that right now, but none of us are constant. Ayurveda always says this, we are constantly changing. So instead of giving up on ourselves by attaching ourselves and our identities to this label, we want to start giving you tools. And some of these tools around mindset are really what's most important. I had a personal experience related to that as well. In college, I was actually very stressed out, typical Indian kid. All of us, we're all required to get straight A's all the time. I was just stressed at school like any teenager would be. I was 19, went to the school counselor, just prescribed me, within 5 minutes, an anti-anxiety and an antidepressant. And I remember feeling like it zonked me out. So for me, that was not the right avenue. And I wasn't clinically depressed. I was just had, circumstantial anxiety. So it just brings the point back to, at this moment of time, we really want to start evolving this mental health conversation to not just rely on the pills and also start thinking about mindset, which really brings me to the next thing I wanted to ask you about, which is that, 2020 really caused a lot of us to start questioning who we are. The way we work has changed. We're now spending a lot more time with our families than we used to. So it's really causing a lot of us to think about, who are my closest relationships in life? Everything seems to have changed. You may have lost your business, you may have lost your job. So what are some of the ways that you see mental health evolving and this conversation evolving in the future based on what we've just gone through in 2020?
I feel like this time right now that we're still currently in, but especially more so in the beginning of the year, people were forced to have to look at themselves, or, on the flip side, completely forced to numb and not look at themselves, right? Like you could have gone about it multiple ways. I mean, as you know, alcohol sales went up by God knows how much, like just so, I mean, so you could tell there's like one subset of population that's like, I'm going to deal with it in this way by just drowning myself in alcohol or drugs or whatever. Then there's this other subset of population. And I think with your audience and the people who are, subscribed and watching this interview right now, they're really more of and there's no right or wrong. Everyone is on their own journey. There's no like, oh, you're better or you're worse for doing this. It's just where you're at right now. But if you're watching this, and I know that you're probably somebody who really wants to understand yourself. And so I think mental health is coming to the forefront. I think because of the pandemic, it's no longer a stigma, right? Because it's like, oh, even people who consider themselves like, I don't have any issues. I don't have mental health issues, right? Even people who are high functioning, high performers, overachievers are having to deal with the effects of being isolated, staying at home, not having socialization. And it's also having people take a big bite of humble pie, right? Because if you never ever really had that empathy and understanding for people maybe in your life or people around you who are dealing with anxiety, depression, and just maybe difficulty getting out of bed, trust me, if you were affected by the just the overall energy of the pandemic, now you probably are like, man, now I get it, right? So I think there's awakening to like, oh, wow, there's nothing to be ashamed of, because especially if you were hit with it, your eyes have been opened to like, this is actually real. This is not just people saying like, oh, I'm depressed. It's an actual thing, right? There are people who cannot get out of bed because they lack socialization, and we all need to socialize, right? So feeling isolated, being confined, having to wear a mask and not knowing what's happening, things being completely out of our control, it has affected everybody. So no matter, like I said, how high functioning and high performing you are, it has affected everyone's mental health. I think has been affected for the better, and unfortunately sometimes also for the worse.
I totally agree with that. And I think uncertainty is one of the biggest things that we're grappling with. And so if you're to think about the Ayurvedic perspective on stress, we have three major types of stress. Vata is associated with anxiety. So people of all body types right now are actually feeling Vata stress, which creates a sense of overwhelm, anxiety, just not knowing what's going on and feeling ungrounded. And I think what's really changing people's view on mental health right now is also that we don't know when this is going to end. So looking forward into 2021, we're setting our New Year's resolutions, planning our year, and we're thinking, oh my God, like what is it going to really be like? Which is really bringing this focus to what's a long-term mental health solution. And so that's why I think, holistic medicine and Ayurveda in specific are really so important, because we want to think about mindset, about diet, what superfoods you're adding through herbs, exercise, lifestyle, all of the above. But one of the things I'm noticing at Veda Warrior, we really believe in personalized approach to mental health. So I spend a lot of time talking to our customers, and a lot of people seem to be in this very depressed, I can't get out of the couch type of state for all of the reasons you just mentioned. People are isolated. You may have job disruptions. You may or may not be with your loved ones. So what are some of the common mindset traps that you've seen people fall into this year, just given all the chaos that we're all experiencing?
I think in the Western world, we focus way more on pleasure and always constantly trying to fill ourselves with pleasure. And as a result, we try to avoid pain, right? So I like to think that depression is really nothing more than a suppression of your emotions. Of course, you're sad. Of course, you cannot get up out of bed. When is the last time you've actually allowed yourself for your sadness to come to the surface? When's the last time you cried? When's the last time you said to someone, you know what? I can't get out of bed in the morning. I am sad. We do not give ourselves permission to feel the uncomfortable emotions. We stuff them, we suffocate ourselves. We're like, everything's fine. But now you're like, you know what? Everything is not fine, right? Everything is not fine. So that's really the trap that we get into, is this emotional perfectionism. I recently recorded an episode about this on my podcast, Being Human with Vasavi, where I said, in our society, we apply these impossible standards to how we should and shouldn't feel. It's okay to feel happy and it's okay to be excited, but it's not okay to feel lonely and it's not okay to feel insecure. But why not? We are human beings. We have the gift of being able to experience a wide range of emotions. And so if you pre-pandemic, right, we're always just seeking external pleasure and seeking outside of you to be happy and fulfilled. And we're not tending to your internal landscape, right? And then the pandemic hit. And now the things that you used to reach to make you happy, which is socialization, going out and grabbing drinks, going out and eating and staying busy, going in like just the busy, being busy, being busy. And now you're left with yourself. Of course, you're depressed because you've spent pretty much your entire life not cultivating a relationship with yourself. And so you don't even like being with yourself because you don't know who you are. And of course you're depressed because you do not have a relationship with yourself, right? It's like being in a romantic relationship with someone that you have no connection with. I often say I have like my clients that come to me and say they're in relationships and they could be sitting next to their partner, but they feel lonely. That's like, imagine that, but with yourself. You're with yourself, but you don't even know who you are. So, and you don't even have a relationship with you. You don't even understand how you think and what you feel. You're afraid of being with your thoughts. So you're a stranger to yourself. So imagine for the past year being trapped in a house with a stranger. That is why people are depressed.
Wow, that was so beautifully said. And I really resonate with that. I mean, as a New York City girl, you're never alone here. This is a city that never sleeps. It's constantly like work, meetings, drinks, dinner, brunch. So we really didn't have a culture in New York City of ever spending time alone, ever just, being with your own thoughts. And I completely resonate with what you said around there's some emotions that are viewed as good. You can feel joy, you can feel excited, but the second it's a sad emotion or a negative quote unquote emotion, it's all about numbing it. Oh God, I cannot feel this pain. But that really causes a lot of suppressed, trapped energy. So in the Ayurvedic system, that would say that you're trapping emotions in different parts of your body. And Ayurvedic scholars would tell you that's going to lead to disease. So, what caused your diabetes? Was it some sort of trapped emotion? And so, this is where Ayurveda, because it's a system of energy healing, really starts to take a lot of notice of like, what are the emotions you're experiencing? And all emotions are meant to be expressed. So even if you're feeling sad, even if it sucks, like, having to sit with that is an important part of the wellness practice, which we never knew and we never would have known had it not been for the challenges of COVID. So there's a little bit of a silver lining there where it really showed us the importance of dealing with those shadow aspects. Which brings me to one of the really beautiful things you just said, and it's about cultivating this relationship with yourself. So one of the most powerful realizations you had was around this self-knowledge. And one of the things you say is that when you know yourself, you can be, do, and create anything you want. So can you teach us the philosophy behind this? How can we use this type of knowledge to manifest change if we're currently feeling stuck?
So think about something that you want to do in your life, right? I believe that every human being fundamentally wants to be better, wants to be a better version of themselves than they were the day before, a month before, a year ago, 10 years ago, right? We all want to do better by us, but our mind gets in the way, right? We tell ourselves we can't. We say, I'm not good enough. We say, I don't have what it takes. I don't have the money. I don't follow through, right? Everything starts with what we're telling ourselves, right? What you tell yourself will directly impact the action that you take or do not take. What you tell yourself will impact how you feel about yourself. If you feel crappy about yourself, you really think you're going to get up and start that workout regime? If you feel, if you don't believe in yourself, do you really think you're going to feel confident to go start that business? No. You're not. So when you know yourself, and I don't just mean your strengths. I think it's very important to know your strengths. In fact, I use primarily a strengths-based approach with my clients. I always look to see, what do you have working for you? What do you have going for you? But when you know yourself, like the ugly parts. And I say ugly loosely because obviously nothing's ugly, but the parts of yourself that you're ashamed of, the parts of yourself that you don't let anybody see, the parts of yourself that you avoid, when you can take that and look at it and actually confront it and talk to that part of yourself instead of being like, you suck, you're awful, you're this, you're unworthy, you're unlovable. If you do not confront it, it will constantly drive you. It's always going to be there. It's like that nagging voice in your head. We all have them. We all have the voices in our head. But when you know yourself, when you know the voices, when you're like, oh, that's a belief that I had that I formed when I was 4 years old. This is this is something that I believe in myself because, I didn't have a good relationship with my mother. And so I made it mean because she worked all the time that I was unimportant, right? I mean, this is where the therapeutic aspect of really going into your childhood and resolving those issues, right? Those beliefs start at a very young age. You may be 45 years old, but you have the mindset of an 8-year-old, right? And I'm not saying that with any disrespect, right? Like whenever you are triggered by something, whenever you act out, you are not chronologically behaving in the age that you're in. You're regressing, right? Because a mature 38, 40, 20, like, a mature, and keyword is mature, and an emotionally mature adult knows how to be calm and composed and chill and respond rather than react. So just consider that those mindset traps that we're really getting into here, if you do not confront it, it will constantly be driving you. And so everything really does begin with what you believe about yourself, subconsciously and unconsciously.
So everything you described right there is really what the ancients would call this sacred warrior philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the ancient times, when he talked about the warrior, it really doesn't have anything to do with violence. It's someone who is mind, body, spirit aligned. So how do we get to that state of mind, body, spirit alignment? It's doing exactly what you just said, which is having the courage to face whatever it is that who you are. And that means the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when we don't face the ugly parts, so to speak, and again, I use that word lightly, as you said, that is really what creates stuck emotions, traumas, which will ultimately also manifest physically. And so that is what Ayurveda, when it talks about mind and body, spirit balance, creating positive health, that's where the spirit part comes in. If you have a trauma from childhood that you never faced, that is going to become a stuck energy. That's going to create a certain electromagnetic field in your body, which will cause a series of chemical reactions and over time cause discomfort, physical discomfort. So this is why it's so important to really focus on that mindset. And I love what you said about really taking this personalized aspect. There's not really much point to a one size fits all mindset approach in my opinion, because each of us has different traumas depending on who you are, what was your parents' relationship like, what was your relationship with them. As you mentioned, you kind of felt like an outsider everywhere, and I really resonate with that. In India, you're too American, and you're too American to some other people, and it's kind of like an interesting dichotomy to grow up in. So really, underscores the value of this personalization. So when you work with your clients, what are some of the things that you're asking them? What do you really want to know about someone before you dive in to try to figure out what their mindset approach should be?
That's a great question. And honestly, I don't immediately go back into their past, right? Actually, when I have a client first come to me, I take a look at what their life is like right now, right? Because what your life is like right now is nothing more than a culmination of all the decisions that you've made up until this point. Your life is the way it is now because of every single choice that you have made. Now, I understand that when we are children, we have very little control over a lot of things, who our parents are, the kind of people that our parents subjected us to be around, right? The upbringing, the parenting, the words that were spoken. But at some point, we have to take massive personal responsibility. And instead of blaming our parents, blaming our boss, blaming the president, blaming society, blaming the government, we have to really ask ourselves, how am I responsible for this? So when a client first comes to me, I will ask, what is your life currently like? What are your morning routines? Like, are you moving your body? What's your financial situation like right now? What are the areas of your life where you are not satisfied, right? And then we look at what are the habits that are keeping those keeping it as it is right now, right? Because you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to keep getting the same results again. If you keep saying, I want to live an abundant life, but you're frivolously adding stuff to your Amazon cart that you do not need, you're not going to be living a life of abundance, right? You're just spending your money on things and you're just not really being aware of what it is that you actually want and the actions that you are taking or not taking that are going to lead you there or not there, right? So really looking at the current snapshot of your life and then taking that current snapshot and being like, well, what made you do this? What did you have to believe about yourself to make this choice? You're in a relationship right now. Let's say that you think that you're not happy in. What is it that you believe about yourself that you keep allowing yourself to get into these situations? It always starts with your beliefs, because what you believe about yourself is what you will attract and what you will continue to allow in your life.
I couldn't agree more, because what we believe is the reality that we create. And this is the whole concept of manifestation. It's that by curating and being very disciplined about the thoughts that we're thinking, first you manage your thoughts and then your outward reality kind of manifests to match what you're already thinking. So that's why this is so important. And this, this really diving into understanding the nuances of what we believe is such an important part of Ayurveda. And what I love about the whole system is it's very non-judgmental. It's okay. Whatever, whoever you are, that's perfectly fine. Like, there's no judgment. There's nothing you did wrong. But Ayurveda is just a system of energy. It helps you understand that the energy of whatever the things that you've done is X. And if you want to fix that, here are the tools to do it. Again, all from using energetic tools. So it's really, really, just like a methodical, energetic approach to understanding who you are at a given moment. And as you said, we do a bunch of different things, right? Like, we talk about the routine. We'll talk about, are you waking up on time? What are you eating? How are you exercising? And how are you structuring your thoughts? Which I think is it's medicine, what you're describing. Like, this should be viewed as a part of anybody's health and wellness routine, to take a very nuanced approach to who am I? What do I believe about myself? And how can I fix, or how can I augment my thoughts in order to create a better reality for myself?
Well,
Um,
we also have to understand, right? Literally, we are trained and primed and conditioned to do things and say things in order to receive external love and approval from a young age. Don't do this, mommy's going to be mad. Don't do that, daddy's going to be mad. Oh, don't say anything, you don't want to rock the boat. So we're literally like, shut up, shut up, shut up, silence, silence, silenced. We don't speak up for ourselves. We're like, okay, if I dress this way and I look this way, then this person will like me. I can't say this because if I say this, I'm going to upset that person. And then we are like, pieces of ourselves are just going away. And we're just an empty shell at that point, which goes back to, you have to know yourself, because when you know yourself, you can see how you get in your own way. And then you can, you have that inner dialogue with yourself, to really talk yourself off the ledge, all right, of this chaos creation that I think we all as human beings do from time to time.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of women specifically suffer with what you just said, this self-doubt. So that even if you're a very accomplished person, that like inner voice in your head that's like, oh, I'm not good enough. So all of us deal with that. All of us do it. And I think, most of us have been facing that a lot in 2020 as we've been facing all these existential challenges. So a very important thing to dive in and take a look at. So in your opinion, what are some of the key benefits that people should expect to see once you do start shifting your mindset? And I'll bring it back to your own journey. There was a point in your specific journey where you decided, look, I gotta get to know myself. I gotta understand how my mind works. So once you did that, once you started making the progress, what were some of the success factors that you saw?
I mean, I'll state the obvious. I have increased my bottom line profusely in my business. Anything that I say that I've been wanting to do, I'm no longer met with resistance. I resist things very easily. I'm very much of the mindset, or I used to be, don't tell me what to do. I'm not going to do that. And then, as a kid, I was like that. As a kid, I always resisted what my parents told me to do. And so as an adult, I resisted everything I wanted to do. And so I became my own worst enemy, right? Because my whole thing is, you're not going to tell me what to do. But unfortunately, as an adult, if you employ that mentality, you're just going to get in your own way, because you're going to just start resisting yourself. So as a result of that, like, I trust myself point blank. I just got a Peloton. I know I told you this, like the Peloton bike. Shmita, I never would have bought myself a piece of workout equipment, because the old Vasavi would have been like, I don't have the discipline to do that. I'm not going to commit to that. Like, I'm not going to do that. But because I trust myself, because every single decision that I've made has been rooted in, I got this. I trust myself. So the ultimate, I would say the ultimate payoff, yes, more money, better friendships. I'm single by choice, right? For the first time, I've always jumped from, I was married and divorced and then got into another relationship, was engaged, right? All because I was like, I'll just jump from jump. I'm single by choice at this point, and I have such a immense amount of faith in God that like everything's going to work out. I'm not desperate for a relationship. The only thing I was desperate for was to have a relationship with myself. That is the only thing that I am desperate for. And I don't even want to say use that word, but I think oftentimes we get very caught up in this. I need this person. I need this relationship. It's like, no, what you need right now is yourself. And because I really cultivated that, I would say in one word or two words, self-trust has been the ultimate payoff of me spending this time with myself. You can't, I don't undermine my own self-trust. Like I don't undermine my decisions, nor I allow anyone to undermine me either, right? Because it's so easy when you're insecure and you don't trust yourself, then you can get around people who obviously are insecure and don't trust themselves, and they can easily talk you off the ledge of doing something that you've been wanting to do. Like, oh, that's stupid. Don't do that. Oh, that's silly. But like, I am my number one guru, right? I don't seek, I mean, yes, of course I have mentors and I have colleagues, but ultimately I trust myself. I'm all for getting feedback. I think it's important that we talk to people who can guide us, who have been, who have walked a similar path, who may be a few steps ahead of you, right? And there's no shame in that. But I used to be someone that only felt good on the inside temporarily as a sexy band-aid, right? When I got the approval from other people. And now I know how to generate my own happiness, fulfillment, and peace from within. I do not rely on anyone emotionally or psychologically. That is 100% what I've been working towards in these 38 years of being here. And I'm finally here.
Wow, that is so powerful. This idea of not needing to rely on those external factors, like what did my parents say about me? What did my colleagues say about me? How do I look on Instagram? What did my high school best friend post on Instagram? And do I measure up? Those are a lot of the things many of us suffer from, and we've all been there. And that shift from this external focus of needing the approval to generating your own confidence, just as kind of like in a vacuum. I think that is one of the super powerful shifts that's been talked about since the ancient times. And what you just said is a really strong part of ancient Vedic philosophy. This shifting inwards of being like a generator, being like a powerhouse of that confidence from the inside out, rather than the outside in, which is what we were all trained and groomed to do. This very outside in approach versus we kind of want to shift. But I also acknowledge that that's a tough process, right? So to many of our viewers and our community members, that sounds like a tall order. Like, how do I really shift to not caring about those things? Because that's where I am today. And I really believe that that's where this one-on-one coach to coaching relationship really makes a big difference. And even in the ancient times, there was this tradition of the guru, right? You would have somebody that held your hand down this path of self-discovery. And I know that you work one-on-one with your clients. So what are some of the things that you do in order to maintain an ongoing relationship? And can you even help us understand why this relationship-based model is so much more powerful than just like, let me prescribe you pills once a quarter and walk away?
Yeah, my clients right now, I take a handful of one-on-one clients because I work with them at a very high level and it's very intimate relationship. I mean, I know everything about my clients. I'm the person that they go to because they feel safe, they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel validated, and they know I'm on their side. Meaning, I have no problem calling them out when I see that they're making excuses for themselves, or they're playing small. That's what they pay me for. They don't pay me to sugarcoat things, but they also know my goal is them. My focus is their success, is their happiness and success, whatever that looks like for them. And ultimately, anything that I say always comes from, is this aligned with your core values? Right? Stop trying to be like everybody else. Stop worrying about mom, dad, that person on the Instagram. What about you? So I laser in on them. So the attention is always on them and not about everybody else. I work with my clients 2 to 3 times a month on the phone. We have like 45-minute sessions. But the cool part, my favorite part, is that we use this app. It's like a walkie-talkie app. and they check in with me whenever they need to. It's like a coach, therapist, business strategist on call, right? So oftentimes, so traditional therapy, like you go to a therapist once a week. You don't really talk to your therapist at all in between sessions. And it's often the in between sessions that you're like having all these light bulb moments and life is starting to happen. And you're like, how do I apply everything that I just talked about? I offer both, right? So it's like you have the 2 sessions a month with me. And then you talk to me, you have like, Monday through Saturday access to me. I'm on call for my clients. And obviously I have clients that have great boundaries, right? Because we have to set those boundaries. We train people how to treat us. It's a great approach because we all can feel so isolated. And so in a time right now where we're like, who do I talk to? Scrolling aimlessly on Instagram is not making me feel better, right? I need a human being that I can talk to. As a licensed therapist and a mindset coach, and as someone who's been in business for 10 years, I provide both the business side and the mindset side and the emotional aspect. So it's worked for my clients because they're very high achieving women who are sensitive, right? Like we are all sensitive beings. I think some of us harden up and think we have to wear an armor and act like things don't matter. But I'm very lucky and I'm very grateful that I have women that are like wanting to kind of shed that armor, because we don't need to be so tough all the time. Like, yes, it's great to be tough and it's great to be strong, but if you're not nurturing the parts of you that are like soft and need that attention, that inner child inside of you, you're just going to be hardened. You're just going to be hardened and lose touch with this other side of you. You're not just one. We have so many different parts to us. And if you only address one and not the other, you're not really living a cohesive life, right? So that's what I bring to the table with my clients.
Well, thank you so much for being who you are, because that is so above and beyond the traditional therapy model. And it really speaks to the fact that we're not constant. Like if you're asking me to be vulnerable, I can't necessarily do that on a schedule, like every Thursday at 4.
Yes.
So having this opportunity to reach you as the moments actually happen, specifically right now, right? Like we're all going through so many changes. Anything could have happened in the past week, and so having that opportunity to have an on-call buddy, so to speak, is really important.
Yes, I love that you say buddy, because it really is. We can't really go to a lot of our family members, right? Especially if they're not doing this line of work. It's a lot harder. Everyone's always speaking from their lens, right? And so it is really beneficial to go to someone who has clear perspective, who's done this work, who's been there, done that, who's dealt with these situations, who's a professional, but who's also human, right? I'm very transparent with my clients. I think a lot of times when you're in the mental health field, therapists, I know for sure, coaches are like, well, I can't let people know my issues. And it's like, no one wants to work with someone who's perfect, right? We want to work with someone like, oh, you're going to get me. You get me. So even, if you follow me on Instagram at my name is Vasavi, I'm pretty transparent about what I don't even want to say pretty. I'm very transparent about what I've gone through in my life, and I share my struggles and I share my journey, because social media as it is can already give you this false image that like everything's perfect, everyone's perfect, and I will never be able to get to that. And it's like, no such thing. Like you will rarely see me. I like hardly ever wear makeup on social media, ever, right? It's just, I just show up as I am. Who has time for that? Who has time for perfection? I don't even know what that is, So.
Exactly. And that is so refreshing. Just this, this freedom to just let go and just be yourself. I think as a society, we really need to let go of this whole, actually this pre-pandemic way of living where everything was about looking perfect on social media. That's simply not the human experience. The human experience is a spectrum of ups and downs. And I think it's very important to embrace all of that. And it's much easier to relate to someone when you know that they've been there as well. If you think somebody's perfect all the time, then it's not going to really help you be vulnerable and really get into those deep questions of like, who am I? And what do I need to face? And am I repressing anything? And what is that creating any physical differences for me? So that's why, having this ongoing personalized approach is so powerful, and why we're so excited to have you on our team as one of our master teachers. So I know I've taken up a lot of your time, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here today. To our community, we want you to know that you can book one-on-one consultations with Vasavi on vedawarrior.com on our experts page. She's a fantastic guide and coach. Listen to more of her Being Human podcast, where you'll get to hear more of her very, just just unrefined, like open reproach, which I love. It's just kind of,
Very unrefined, yes.
yes,
I'm
which I
trying
love.
to- I am an East Coaster, so I've been known to drop a 4-letter word here and there. So.
Well, I'm a New Yorker as well, so that's why it definitely resonated with me. And just unfiltered, which is beautiful. We're just here to be ourselves and be human, and that's what your podcast is all about. And we look forward to meeting many of our Veda Warrior community members. And thanks everyone for being here today. And we look forward to you tuning in next time for our next masterclass series. Thank you.
Thank you.